welcome back to Yoga Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Waycott. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to let you know about an upcoming training that I'm really excited about. I am hosting a one-day verbal cues masterclass for yoga teachers, and this is all in person. It is a 6-hour intensive, and it is focused on refining your language in the classroom so that you can teach with more clarity and precision. Now, if you've ever felt like you are over-explaining yourself or you're struggling to get your students to understand what you're actually asking for, this is going to be a really powerful and transformative intensive for you. We're going to break down how to structure your cues, how to simplify your language and kind of strip it back and get rid of all of that extra fluff that we love to use as yoga teachers. We're going to talk about how to facilitate deeper mind-body connection through your words and how to communicate in a way that really lands and resonates with your students. So this one-day masterclass is happening on Sunday, April 19th at the Hub in Abbotsford, British Columbia. I only have 3 spaces left. This training filled up super quickly. So if you live local to the Fraser Valley, the Lower Mainland, Greater Vancouver area, and you want to join us on April 19th, you can send me a DM on Instagram. It's at alexandria.waycott, or send me an email and I will make sure that you get all the details and I will get you signed up for that training. So if you live close by, I would absolutely love to have you. It's going to be such a great group. Such a great group of teachers are already signed up. And I just want to make sure that you know that that invitation is out there. This is one of the subjects that I am just like the most passionate about. I love teaching about verbal cues. And I'd love to have you there. So without further ado, I thought that we would dive into like a little weekend recap rather than going like straight into the episode. And last week when I was chatting here on the podcast, I was talking about how I felt like I was just like coming down with some kind of sickness. And that definitely came true. I had such a bad cold this last week and it plagued me. But it was thankfully short-lived. Like it was intense, but then it was finished quickly. So that was really good. I am starting to feel a lot better, not 100%, but like way better than I was a few days ago. And yesterday, this weekend was like, it was busy and I was doing so many different things and being pulled in so many different directions. But yesterday I got to attend an event, a local event that was hosted by one of my fellow Lululemon ambassadors. And it was a running event. And while I didn't run at the event, it was super cool to go and just see all of the people that came out to participate in this local run and to just kind of meet like some people that I hadn't met before and, you know, this other ambassadors community. It was a really, really great turnout. So I got to do that. That was kind of fun. And then afterwards, this was on Saturday night, I actually got to go teach in a workshop. And it was a workshop that one of my colleagues was hosting. And I got to share a yoga nidra practice with the group. And we actually taught that workshop last weekend as well. So this was like our second round. It was sold out, but in a different city. And, you know, it's just so fun to like co-teach with someone else. I've said this before, where you're not having to like hold the full responsibility or like the whole weight of the room yourself. It just really kind of like takes that weight off when you have somebody to co-teach with. And what I also thought was really cool was that people wanted to spend their Saturday night at a wellness workshop and that they wanted to spend their Saturday night practicing yoga nidra. I was like, this is truly my kind of Saturday. So that was really good. And then this morning, I guess it was supposed to be kind of a day off today, but it wasn't really because I got up this morning and I started replying to emails and sending invoices and then paying invoices. And I posted on social media. And then I went out and I did some one-on-one mentorship for a student of mine who's been teaching for the past year. And it was great to catch up with them and just hear about how things are going and like some of the, inevitable like roadblocks that they're encountering as well. And then I got to take a yoga class. And now I'm recording a podcast. And it's like every day is different when you are an independent yoga teacher running your own programming. But I wouldn't change it for anything. It's fun and sometimes chaotic. But without further ado, I'm going to dive into today's episode. And I want to talk about something that every yoga teacher experiences at some point. And this is what I would call having an off teaching day. So these are kinds of like those days where you show up to teach and maybe you're not feeling your best. Your mind was elsewhere, you're distracted, you're under the weather. Maybe you tried to teach something new to your group and it didn't really land. And we have all had classes like this. I would say more classes like this than I can count. And it is way too easy to get hung up on what went wrong when we have those kinds of off days in our teaching. And I want to be real with you and tell you that I'm inspired to share about this because I had my own off teaching day just this past week. I had been under the weather, kind of like I mentioned, with a cold. And when I showed up to teach, I found myself just feeling distracted by how uncomfortable I was feeling in my body. I was feeling kind of congested. I was tired, I hadn't been sleeping well because I'd been sick. And I just knew that I didn't have the energy that I typically have to be present with my students. And that discomfort that I was feeling, when you're sick, was really taking away from the task of teaching. And I just didn't feel like I was able to deliver to the best of my ability. Now, when I look back and reflect, were my classes fine? Yes. Were they safe? Yes. Did my students notice? Probably not so much. But I still had a few moments where I was driving home after teaching my classes that night where I just kind of felt bad that I showed up and I didn't have my usual energy. And this is the reality of teaching yoga. We are going to have days where we have to teach and we don't feel our best. Our mind is elsewhere, and this is truly inevitable. So what do we do when we have those days? When we have an off day where we're just not able to deliver to our full potential, maybe something happens that's out of our control and it throws us off. And when I think of things that are, out of our control, that happens sometimes when we're teaching, that could be things like a student walking in late or a fire alarm or a car alarm going off. Maybe the power cuts out in the middle of your class or somebody gets up and leaves partway through your class and you don't even know why. And then there's also those days where none of these external things happen, but it's just us and our energy is off and we're not feeling our best and it trickles into our teaching. So, what do we do when this happens? My number one tip for you is to remember that you're human and not dwell on it for too long. It is normal to feel a little bit of frustration or embarrassment or shame, even when you have those kind of off teaching days, but it is not helpful to sit and wallow in it. And I know that from personal experience. There was a period of time in my teaching life where someone in my immediate family was going through cancer treatments, and a lot of the caregiving was falling onto me, and I was really stressed about it. It was taking a lot of my attention, a lot of my energy. I was really worried. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't eating enough. And during that period of time, I would say it was about a year, the stress that I was experiencing in my personal life was really compounding. And I started to find that it was creeping into my teaching because it was impacting my mind. And I remember what was happening was that in the middle of teaching, my mind would go completely blank. And I was just under so much stress that I would forget what I had just taught. I would forget what was supposed to come next. I couldn't remember how to break down like familiar postures that I taught hundreds of times. And I couldn't remember how to like break them down and explain them. And what happened was that there were a lot of really awkward moments in my teaching during that period of time. And I was literally just standing there, like mind blank, no words coming to me. All of the students are staring at me, like waiting for the next cue. And I had nothing. And most of my students didn't know what was going on in my personal life at the time. And so a lot of people were probably just confused and wondering what was wrong with me. Like, why is my teacher so spacey and so out of it? And like, obviously, that was the result of an external situation in my life that was affecting me personally. Um, and I just remember like that I would feel a lot of shame about it. And I would spend so long, like days after teaching, just replaying what went wrong in my head and reliving those awkward moments where like I couldn't find my words and everybody was staring at me and looking at me like I was dumb. And I would really like fixate on it. And in hindsight, I realized that this was causing a lot of unnecessary suffering on top of the suffering that I was already experiencing at that time. So, number one thing, if you're having like an off teaching day, or if you're going through a tough period of time where like, your teaching just isn't isn't how it normally is. Number one thing is that you don't need to replay the entire class in your head or pick apart every moment in the class. I feel like when you get caught in that loop of like over analysis, that doesn't help you. That doesn't make you a better teacher. It's not going to fix, the other situations going on in your life. It is really just going to drain your energy and like chip away at your confidence. Okay. So really remember that like it's normal to, feel all the feelings when you have an off teaching day, but don't allow yourself to replay what went wrong over and over. And that brings me into tip number 2, which is to try to get logical about what's going on. Now, typically within the context of yoga, like I am all for feeling your feelings and getting out of your head and into your body and really connecting to like what you feel and what's going on. But in this particular situation, I'm actually not sure if that's super helpful, especially if we are getting hung up on particular feelings that this has brought up in us. So instead of spiraling or making that off teaching day like mean something about you as a teacher or your skills as a teacher, I would really try to zoom out and just look at it very objectively. So ask yourself things like, what can I learn from this one class, for example, that didn't go so well? Was there a moment in the class where I could have been more clear? Did I rush through something? Did I over explain something? Was there a particular transition or movement that didn't really land or where people looked kind of confused? And I would say that you're not looking for 10 things to fix. Try to look for like one thing, like one insight. Pick one data point from like the whole class and take it with you and learn from it. But don't overwhelm yourself or feel like, oh my gosh, there were so many things that went wrong. I don't even know where to start. Like, just pick one. Just pick one and like let the rest of the class fall away. And that is actually how you refine your teaching without burning yourself out. And this is the kind of practice that we want to do even when our teaching is going well also. So like not just when you have an off day. Do this all the time when you're teaching. What's one thing I want to improve on? What's one thing I want to refine or revisit? But you don't need to like rework the whole class. Last tip number 3 is get back to teaching as soon as possible, right? Like get back in the saddle. You want to get back into the teaching seat as quickly as you can, because the longer you wait, the bigger that off day is going to start to feel in your mind. And truly the only way that we become better teachers is by just going out there and teaching. And I can say from experience that we do develop a resilience to kind of bounce back from those off days a little faster. Whereas in the past, yes, I would have spent days kind of ruminating and playing, what went wrong over and over in my mind. And now I'm able to recognize that that's really not helpful. I can spend 2 minutes while I'm driving home being like, that wasn't the best, but I'm also just going to carry on because I don't need to cause myself unnecessary suffering because of it. And I truly know that like the longer you teach, the more off days you're going to have because life is just going to keep lifing. They are inevitable, and there are going to be seasons of life that challenge you, and you might find that you just don't have the energy or the presence to show up for teaching in the way that like you're capable of. But at the end of the day, having an off teaching day is really just like part of this work. It doesn't define who you are. It doesn't define your skills as a teacher. And so I would try to take one clear lesson from it, just pull one little piece out of the class that you want to refine. Don't let it spiral into this big, session of like wallowing in self-doubt, and try to get back to teaching as soon as you can. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode of Yoga Insider Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.